All characters in the story are over 18 years old. A website called Forbidden Confessions is hidden in the dark web. People come to this site to talk about their past meetings with family members, confess their sins, or share their secrets with an audience. These individuals seek a platform where their actions are not met with condemnation, but rather with understanding and empathy. The site, known as Forbidden Confessions, operates within the hidden realm of the dark web, offering a space for personal revelations, confession, and the expression of secrets. This confession is different. Perhaps the story is a humorous, if taboo, memory or something they still enjoy. But who could they tell their story to without being demonized for breaking society's rules? Forbidden confessions are a mixture of sinful yet pleasant and loving encounters, as well as true, shameful acts that the perpetrator deeply regrets. This side is not intended for individuals concerned about any stories, but rather for those who have either experienced it or wish to do so. Utilize these stories to vicariously experience what others have gone through, take pleasure in what we know is wrong, and receive a sense of comfort in knowing that they are not alone in their pursuit of the shameful acts that the perpetrator deeply regrets. This side is not intended for those who are concerned about any of the stories, but rather for those who have either experienced it or wish to experience it. Use these stories to vicariously enjoy what we know is wrong and to take pleasure in knowing that they are not alone in their pursuit of the forbidden fruit. Even in this group, there are those who are here for various reasons. Some smile at the fun games between brothers and sisters, stories about forbidden love, and the desire of parents and their adult children. However, there are also those whose desires are a little darker, who like stories about blackmail or taking advantage of themselves. Regardless of one's motives, whether one came to confess, enjoyed confession, or was driven by unhealthy curiosity, the objective is to fulfill one's purpose for the benefit of all present. I introduce myself, I am Roy, aged 73, and I have frequented this site numerous times since its discovery 2 years ago. I have found many of the narratives here to be intriguing, though I have never felt the need to engage. The need to share my own experience has been present since I discovered this site 2 years ago. However, it is only today, as I commemorate the golden anniversary of the event that has had a transformative impact on my life, that I feel compelled to do so. I hope that for those who find themselves in a similar situation, this will evoke fond memories of that pivotal moment when you first experienced the gratification of realizing that what society deems wrong can, in fact, be right. It was the summer of 1968, and for me and my twin sister Rose, it was a challenging period. Our parents, who were devout Christians, believed in a stringent version of religious devotion, and we felt a sense of pressure to conform. Our mother was responsible for our education, while our father dedicated his time to the church. The congregation was small, and the tithes he received were barely enough to keep the church afloat and support his family. Our mother contributed by offering piano lessons and tutoring the neighborhood children. Despite our limited financial resources, we had a place to live, food on the table, and decent clothes. Our community was small and rarely ventured outside. Rose and I were very close, and today such a relationship might be considered unhealthy, even within the modern Pentecostal church. However, it was not uncommon for an extended period. My father annually entrusted the church's management to an assistant pastor, allowing him to focus on teaching and preaching at the 6. The event was sponsored by the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and the camp was well funded. My sister and I were able to visit the camp for free. I know it's great, isn't it? Which boy or girl would prefer to spend the summer with children their age and have fun instead of the opportunity to receive additional religious education? I know you think it was still a camp where there should have been at least some entertainment. Rose and I were the epitome of closeness, and today, it would seem unhealthy. But it was not uncommon every year. For as long as I can remember, my father has handed over the management of the church to an assistant pastor so that he could teach and preach at the 6-week Renaissance summer camp in the south of the country. The event was sponsored by the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and it was well funded. My sister and I were able to visit the camp for free. While there were children our age, they were raised in a way that was similar to us, but one step above the Amish. It felt as if we were just talking to our own reflections. Some of the other children may have felt the same, but they were afraid to speak up. This summer was particularly challenging due to the fact that at the age of it was between morning prayer, early Bible study, and of course, evening service. There were children our age, but they were raised in a way that was one step above the Amish. It felt like we were just talking to our own reflections, or maybe not, because we're both tired of this lifestyle. Some of the other kids did too, but they were afraid to say so. This summer was even worse than the previous ones because, at the age of 18, we began to participate in prayers and Bible study for adults and were no longer allowed to attend many activities for younger children. When we helped our parents pack our bags and suitcases into an old van, we were less enthusiastic than ever. Now that I've sorted out some of the mundane details, let me turn the conversation to what you came here for. As you can imagine, the topic of making love was forbidden, except that each of us had sex for our own pleasure. My father and Rose from our mother were informed that physical intimacy was only permitted after marriage, and no further details were discussed. There were no explicit instructions or cautionary tales about how to navigate this journey, nor was there any mention of safety precautions. It was beyond our comprehension that any of us were interested in physical intimacy, as our parents found it inconceivable that we would engage in such acts. However, this was not their intention. That I inquired with my father on numerous occasions about this matter, and he responded that as soon as I encountered a virtuous God, I would comprehend the matter. Fearing that a young lady might fall in love and get married for the wrong reasons, I was determined to spend the rest of my life preventing that from happening. This was a secret that was known only to us. We didn't attend school to socialize with children who were aware of the situation. The children we talked to at church were just as uninformed as we were, and the same applied to the crowd. It is difficult for young people today to comprehend this, but it is important to note that there was no internet, no videotapes, and limited access to movies outside of adult cinemas. However, over the past few months, I have found myself reflecting on this topic more frequently. Despite the isolation, I have been thinking about it more and more. The isolation from the outside world is not a cure for the natural curiosity and agitation that are characteristic of the human condition. That I have had dreams about women I knew from church or camp, despite having little to no concept of what a woman should look like. If you are a man reading this, you are aware of how our minds are influenced by our hormones and natural curiosity. It is frustrating to be unable to find any relief, but imagine my situation when I didn't even have a chance to find that relief. Some children today think that their parents are strict. We are twins, and like all twins, we were exceptionally close, especially due to the lack of a social life. We were the typical couple. We were inseparable, engaging in activities such as playing, sharing secrets, and occasionally engaging in mischief. Despite our close bond, we maintained a sense of decorum, dressing respectfully in the house and adhering to social norms. I was expected to dress conservatively, avoiding shorts, and we refrained from any behavior that might suggest undue intimacy. We dressed conservatively in the presence of others, maintaining a level of decency that would be considered appropriate for a domestic setting. I was required to wear jeans or sweatpants, while my sister adhered to a similar dress code, with the exception of shorts. Despite the restrictions on women's appearance, I found my sister to be particularly captivating due to her striking facial features. Women in the church were not permitted to use cosmetics or jewelry, with the exception of wedding attire. Rose's natural beauty was evident, and her red hair was more vibrant than mine, which was reddish-brown. Rose's red hair was much brighter than mine, which was reddish-brown. Her natural beauty was undeniable. As with most parishioners and young ladies, she wore her hair in a bun or braided. Her long, naturally curly locks looked like liquid flames, and her stunning pale blue eyes were an incredible contrast of fire and ice, pale like any girl. With pure Irish roots, she was dotted with freckles on her cheeks and nose area, which enhanced her model beauty. Rose, a sensible young lady leading a righteous Christian life, but I always had the feeling that my sister was much freer in spirit than most of the children in our church, including myself. One of our many rules was that by 9 hours, after an hour of watching TV, which we were allowed to watch with our parents and only if it was educational and family-oriented, we had to go to our rooms and stay there overnight, except when we needed to use the restroom. Even then, we were asked to go out before bed. However, Rose was caught sneaking out of the house twice, and once during last year's camp, the story she told my parents. After an hour of watching TV, which was allowed only with our parents and only if it was family-oriented, we had to go to our rooms and stay there overnight. We were only allowed to leave for the toilet, and even then, we were asked to go out before bed. However, Rose was caught sneaking out of the house twice. During last year's camp, she told my parents that she had just walked around and enjoyed the night air and the sense of freedom that she thought we were deprived of constantly being at home, in church, or surrounded by the same people. In response, our parents locked her in a room at night for a whole month. I think that this would have led to a call to the authorities in our time because she was told that if she needed to go to the toilet she had a similar experience. She walked around and enjoyed the night air and the sense of freedom that she thought we were deprived of constantly being at home in church or surrounded by the same people. In response, our parents confined her to a room at night for a whole month. I think that this would have led to a call to the authorities in our time because she was told that if she needed to go to the toilet, she must either endure or be ready to wash everything that she had soiled. Rose also slipped away from group activities at the camp from time to time, but always showed up in time for roll call before heading back to the cafeteria, church, or group of cabins where everyone was staying. And again, she told me that all she did was walk by herself and try to see everything with her own eyes without waiting. She did not seek guidance on how to interpret what she saw. This was the final example of her independent approach. It is now time to address the most anticipated aspect of the story. On a Friday evening, during the most significant service of the week, attended by individuals from neighboring churches, our father delivered a speech and led the service. However, he allowed other pastors to preach. This was a special occasion, as it was our father's turn to lead. Consequently, the service began at 9:30, and concluded at 11 p.m. Typically, if someone attempted to pray until the end, I did not observe Rose from morning prayers until dinner, as in youth groups, boys and girls were separated from each other throughout the day. However, on that particular day, she surprised me by catching up with me around 12 o'clock as I was walking to the boys' cafeteria. She withstood several shocked stares from the other boys, grabbed my hand, and told me to stand so she could talk to me. I shouted, "Shek, my sister," to one of the counselors, who looked at us strangely. Although our resemblance was so close that it was obvious, he waved at me and added, "Don't stay too long," and then stay with. As I was walking to the boys' cafeteria, she withstood several shocked stares from the other boys. She grabbed my hand and told me to stand so she could talk to me. I shouted, "Shek, my sister," to one of the counselors, who looked at us strangely. Although our resemblance was so close that it was obvious, he waved at me and added, "Don't stay too long," and then stayed with the main group as they continued walking. Rose looked strange. Her cheeks were the same color as her name, and her eyes were wide and bright. Even though the day wasn't that warm, and we were in the shade, she was sweating. I asked what was wrong, and in a scared voice, she told me that she would return to the hut and tell our mother that she was not feeling well. Rose appeared unusual. Her cheeks were the same color as her name, and her eyes were wide and bright. Despite the day's cool temperatures and our location in the shade, she was perspiring. I inquired about her well-being and she informed me that she would return to the hut and inform our mother that she was not feeling well. I began to ask her what had occurred, but she interrupted me, suggesting that I should do the same. When I asked why, she replied that I should trust her and that she and I should consider abstaining from attending the service in order to be alone. I must have looked as confused as I felt because she laughed, and I could hear the nervousness in her laugh, but she told me she wanted I inquired about the nature of her request, but she interrupted me, suggesting that I do the same. When I asked why, she replied that I should trust her and that we should attend the service alone. I must have looked as confused as I felt, because she laughed, and I could hear the nervousness in her laugh. However, she told me she wanted to show me something, and that I just needed to do as she asked. I had no idea what was going on, but the idea of skipping the service wasn't such a bad one, considering that during the 3 weeks we spent there, it was held every night. I agreed, feeling like a complete fool and also guilty for lying to our parents. Nevertheless, I declared that I did not feel well. Upon returning to the cottage, I informed my mother that I had been feeling dizzy and unwell. I even feigned a trip to the bathroom and made several realistic gagging sounds to simulate vomiting. Rose exhibited similar symptoms, but we hoped that our parents wouldn't notice anything out of the ordinary. I believe our efforts were successful, despite our fatigue from church. Upon returning to the cottage, I informed my mother that I was experiencing dizziness. I was also feeling unwell, and I feigned a run to the bathroom, emulating several gagging sounds and declaring that I had vomited. Rose exhibited similar symptoms, but we hoped that our parents would not suspect anything. I believe this approach was effective, despite our fatigue from church. None of us ever requested a date because our mother informed our father that we should not go there. He alarmed us when he offered to go and allow all the ministers to lay their hands on us and pray. However, our mother declined, stating that there was no need to take any risks. Chess, that will worsen, and perhaps others will get sick. After all, it was only one night. Our father relented, but none of us ever requested a date because our mother informed our father that it would be unwise for us to go there. He frightened us when he offered to go and allow all the ministers to lay their hands on us and pray. However, our mother acquiesced, stating there was no reason to take any chances. Chess would only worsen, and perhaps others would fall ill. After all, it was just one night. Our father yielded, but prohibited us from watching TV, and we had to go to bed early. Each of us went to our room to lie down because, as you know, we were sick. In the end, I dozed off shortly before they left at 6:30. I was awakened by a soft knock on the door, and looking at the alarm clock to my right, saw that it was 5 minutes to 8. The knock was repeated, and I hesitantly called to allow them in. We were prohibited from watching television and had to retire early. Each of us went to our respective rooms to rest. We were quite ill at the time. I eventually fell asleep shortly before they left at approximately 6:30. I was awakened by a soft knock on the door. Looking at the alarm clock, I saw that it was 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. The knock was repeated, and I hesitantly called to let them in. The door opened, and my sister came into the room. I stopped talking because I sat up and turned around on the bed to get a good look at Rose. Her hair was loose, 2 long red curls framed her face perfectly. As always, I felt strangely excited to see her like this because it made her look much more like a woman than a little girl. The door opened, and my sister entered the room. I stopped talking because I sat up, turned around on the bed, and got a good look at Rose. Her hair was loose, 2 long red curls framed her face perfectly, and as always, I felt strangely excited to see her like this because it made her look much more like a woman than a little girl. However, that wasn't what left me speechless. My sister was wearing makeup, her lips were painted red as bright as her hair, and her ice blue eyes were highlighted with blue eyeshadow. Her eyelashes were longer and painted black, and her usually white cheeks turned pink. "What have you done to your face?" I managed to ask after a few seconds of stunned silence. "You like it?" I inquired, attempting to regain my composure. She smiled, showcasing her white teeth against her red lips. It took a great deal of effort on my part not to appear like a clown. "You look like a woman, I mean, like a genuine woman who doesn't attend church or a harlot, as the Bible describes." She giggled, and her laugh resonated higher and more shrilly, as if she was forcing herself to do so or was anxious about something. "You like it?" she inquired, her smile revealing her white teeth against her red lips. It took a great deal of effort on my part not to appear absurd. "You resemble a woman, I mean a genuine woman who does not attend church or a harlot, as the Bible states." She giggled, and her laugh was higher and slightly shrill, as if she was forcing herself to do so or was anxious about something. Where did you acquire this? If Mom and Dad discover this, you will face significant difficulties. Then Mom must be in trouble because it is hers. Her response left me stunned, and I repeated her words. Does Mom have makeup? Rose nodded, moving closer to the bed. To be honest, I only see your face. I was immediately drawn to her hair. Where did you acquire this item? If Mom and Dad discover it, you're in serious trouble. Then Mom must be in trouble, because it's hers. Her response left me speechless, and I repeated, does Mom have makeup on? Rose nodded, moving closer to the bed. To be honest, I was only looking at her face because my attention was immediately drawn to her hair. And then the shock of her painted face. But when I looked down, my jaw dropped. What do you think about it? What is it? She asked. What does your little sister look like in the role of a big girl? I replied. You're my little sister for only 15 minutes. Not knowing what else to say, Rose rolled her eyes. Come on, Roy, play with me. She smiled slightly. Trust me, it's worth it. I was taken aback by her painted face. When I looked down, I was surprised. What are your thoughts on this? She asked. What does your little sister look like in the role of a big girl? You're my little sister for only 15 minutes, I said, not knowing what else to say. Rose rolled her eyes. Come on, Roy, play with me. She smiled slightly. Trust me, it's worth it. Are we playing at? I asked. I'll tell you, but first you have to answer me. Do you like to see me look like a woman? Yes, I replied, almost in a whisper. You look amazing. Thank you. She giggled, technically ruining the game. She was a woman now, but at the same time, this sound seemed much more attractive than in the past. I like your perfume, pearls, and lace. Are we playing at? I inquired. I'll tell you, but first you have to answer me. Do you like to see me look like a woman? Yes, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. You look amazing. Thank you. She giggled, technically ruining the game. She was a woman now, but at the same time, this sound seemed much more attractive than in the past. I like your perfume, pearls, and lace, she replied, still hugging me. It's Mom's, and this dress is too. I know it's a little weird, but I don't have funny things like this. I didn't think that Mom had something like that. I thought wrong. Besides the fact that I'm dressing up, and it may be part of the game again, what kind of game is this? I stood with my hands awkwardly at my sides. Rose blinked at the she replied, still embracing me. It's Mom's, and this dress is too. I realize it may seem unconventional, but I don't possess such items. I didn't suspect that Mom possessed something like that. I thought wrong. Besides, I'm dressing up, and it may be part of the game again. What kind of game is this? I stood with my hands awkwardly at my sides. Rose blinked at the touch and swallowed before answering, that's nice. I like it when you touch me. I liked it, too. I knew it was wrong. I'm glad you're not upset. I like what I see. Maybe you can see more. What is it, exactly? Something that made me want to do it to look good, but to behave badly. She looked at me through heavily made-up eyes, with mascara. Do you want to be bad with me? She asked. I prefer to touch and swallow before answering. That's nice. I like it when you touch me. I liked it, too. I knew it was wrong. I'm glad you're not upset. I like what I see. Maybe you can see more. What is it, exactly? Something that made me want to do it to look good but to behave badly. She looked at me through heavily made-up lashes with mascara. Do you want to be bad with me? What kind of bad? You know. I like to wander around when I have the opportunity. I like watching people when they don't know I'm seeing them, and I like watching their behavior. It's pretty boring in the church or nearby, but not today. What happened today? I noticed that Mom and Dad were not in the dining room yesterday. I saw them leaving the training hall around 11. It was a rather unfortunate incident. I prefer to take my time and observe people when they are not aware of my presence. I find it intriguing to watch their behavior. While it can be rather monotonous in the church or its vicinity, today was an exception. Today, I noticed that Mom and Dad were not in the dining room yesterday. I observed them leaving the training hall around 11 a.m. today. I followed them to determine their destination. They went to a certain location. I looked inside and saw Dad sitting on the couch. I did not see Mom. After a few minutes, I became bored and then I heard her calling him from the hallway. I ran around the house. I noticed that the blinds were not fully lowered, and I could see into their room. Mom was wearing makeup, and I saw the case on her dresser. Today, I followed them. Where did they go? They came here first. I looked inside and saw Dad sitting on the couch. I didn't see Mom. After a few minutes, I got bored. Then, I heard her calling him from the hallway. I ran around the house. The blinds were not fully lowered, and I could look into their room. Mom was wearing makeup, and I saw the case on her dresser. Wait a minute. As her words broke through the fog of my confused, used feelings, I blinked. You mean you saw them making love? Rose said in a hoarse whisper, which was trembling. I thought you and I could play their game. Her eyes, big and shiny, met mine. We can call it what Mom and Dad do. Show me what they were doing. Please stop. Did I do something wrong? No, but there are table wait. I blinked as her words registered. I was overwhelmed by my feelings. You saw them? I asked, attempting to contain my emotions. I saw them making love, Rose said in a hushed tone, her eyes glazing over. I thought you and I could play their game. Her eyes met mine. We can call it what Mom and Dad do. Show me what they were doing. Please stop it. Did I do something wrong? No, but there are other ways to play. She gave me a smile that has never ceased to fascinate me. For many years, Rose laughed and pushed me away. I collapsed next to her on the bed, and we lay in silence, catching our breath. Did you like the game? She asked. What is it? I replied. I could play it all the time, I said, laughing. Promise that you will only play with me, she said, turning around and no longer smiling. There are other ways to play. She smiled, and I was intrigued. Dad, I'm serious. I want to be yours, and you want to be mine forever. Just us. I would like that. I'll do whatever you want. I'll be a good woman and a bad girl for you. Rose, I said, but you're going to be nice to me, okay? It's not a problem. You are the most beautiful girl I know. You don't know many people. She tried to keep a serious expression on her face and then giggled, but I'd be, Rose, I want to be with you, and you want to be with me forever. Just the two of us. I would like that. I'll do whatever you want. I'll be a good woman and a bad girl for you. Rose said, but you're going to be nice to me, okay? It's not a problem. You are the most beautiful girl I know. You don't know many people. She tried to keep a serious expression on her face and then giggled. But I'd be glad, even if you knew. Make no mistake, I'll be the best guy you know. Do you believe it? I guess she told me, and then burst out laughing. Roy, I'm so happy right now, me too. But the enormity of what happened struck me. What about Mom and Dad? We won't tell them, silly. Rose rolled her eyes, but we're 18 now, and we're old enough to work. When we leave, we'll find a job, Dad. I'm pleased to inform you that I'm the best person you know. Do you believe it? I believe it, but I'm also happy right now. However, I'm concerned about what happened. What about Mom and Dad? We won't tell them, silly. Rose rolled her eyes, but we're 18 now, and we're old enough to work. When we leave, we'll find a job, Dad. He wants us to go to Bible college in a year, when he has enough money to do so. Then, we will work and rent a place. I don't want to live like this anymore and meet you in secret. As soon as we can, we'll move in. Promise me. They will be unhappy. We've never been happy, Roy. Do you want to make them happy? Do you want me to make you happy forever, only you? I'm happy to do that, and he has expressed his desire for us to attend Bible college within the next year, once he has accumulated sufficient financial resources. We intend to work and secure a rental property. I am no longer willing to continue this secretive relationship. As soon as feasible, we will move in and establish a stable domestic life. I promise you that they will be content. We have never experienced true happiness. Roy, do you desire to make them happy? Do you want me to make you happy forever? Only you. I exclaimed, that's a good answer, and we can engage in intimate activities every night when we are alone. Whatever you desire. Rose, whatever you desire that evening was 50 years ago. I had never considered it before, but my sister possessed more knowledge about intimate activities than I did. After that, I simply wanted to sleep, but Rose wanted to go to our parents' room and search their dresser. We found more cosmetics and some very fashionable items. We can play every night when we're alone. Whatever you want, Rose. Whatever you want that evening was 50 years ago. I never thought about it then, but my sister knew more about making love than I did. After that, I just wanted to sleep, but Rose wanted to go to our parents' room and rummage there in Mom's dresser. We found more cosmetics and some very fashionable items. Looking back, I realized that my mom used to make up for Dad. However, it also made me see things in a negative light. We and all young people like us were deprived of this pleasure. In order to obtain it, we had to live a pure life. I wonder how many young people in this church got married without feeling much love for each other, but in order to finally be able to satisfy their longing, they felt compelled to remain celibate their entire lives, fearing that divorce was another sin, but they did not apply this standard to themselves. Despite the societal disapproval, our love flourished and endured. 50 years have passed, and we remain together, deeply committed to each other. We upheld our commitment to our parents by not taking a year off to pursue religious studies. We made a conscious decision not to take a year off from college to meet our future spouses, as our parents had suggested. Instead, we chose to continue working and pursuing our own lives. The initial period was challenging, as we spent limited time together and experienced feelings of separation. However, we maintained consistent communication and remained committed to our decision. We were introduced to each other at college, and we were told that we would be introduced to our future spouses. We were going to keep working and live our own lives. The first few months were not easy. We spent some time together when we could and missed each other in our rooms when we couldn't. There was a constant debate about the need to pray for different things. It wasn't like that, it was ours, and we stuck to it. We moved into a small 3-room apartment. We bought a folding bed, which I claimed I slept on. We lived as brother and sister to the whole world and as a couple in love behind closed doors. We both left the church, and our parents disowned us. As frustrating as it was, it worked in our situation. We were able to leave the state without feeling guilty, and once we were in a place where no one knew us, we began to live openly as a couple. Rose even dyed her hair black for a couple of years so that we wouldn't look so much. We were similar in many ways, but we were also able to maintain a certain level of separation from others. We were not concerned with what others thought of us, and we never noticed any strange behavior. We did not get officially married, but we did purchase rings and told people that we were married. 5 years after we began our relationship, our first child was born. Our daughter, Lynn, was born 5 years later. 2 years after that, our son, Rice, was born. One day, our mother came to our home. I am not sure how she found out where we lived, but she wanted to come and visit. We discussed the matter at length, but ultimately decided against pursuing it. It would have been impossible to conceal the fact that we had 2 children, and they would have been appalled by our lifestyle, which, in their view, constituted a grave sin. It was a challenging decision, but one that we ultimately had to make. Moreover, they have forced us to adopt a harsh, puritanical lifestyle. We often discuss whether they created our sin in their desire to protect us from the world. It is conceivable that, had we been raised differently, we might have go to school, socialize with others, and eventually establish a family. However, as Rose notes, our father always asserted 2 things: first, that God had a plan, and second, that no one was supposed to understand or even like it. Therefore, it was possible that this was God's plan for us, although we haven't communicated for some time. Despite the circumstances that brought my sister and me together half a century later, we have children, grandchildren, and we love each other very much. We still do what our parents did.